When you're talking about prokaryotes, remember that's bacteria, you'll often be asked about their gram stain. So bacteria can be classified into one of two categories. They're either gram-positive or they're gram-negative. But what exactly does that mean? Well, there's a diagnostic test that we use that tells us if a bacteria is gram-positive or gram-negative. Here I have two paper towels. One is just a plain paper towel, and the other is a paper towel with a piece of wax paper over it. This is kind of like the two types of bacteria. One has a single layer in its cell membrane, and one has a double layer in its cell membrane. If we apply our gram stain, which I didn't have any handy, so in our case we're applying soy sauce here, but if we apply our gram stain to both samples, you'll see that the single layer absorbs the dye right offhand, and the double layer repels it. And then there's a step in the process of the test where you wash the stain off and see how much stain is left behind. So you'll see that when we wash both of these samples, even though there's a little bit of staining present on our plate with the wax paper, there's not nearly as much present as there is on the plate that has no wax paper over it. When you're looking at diagnostic testing, the term positive indicates that whatever you were testing for showed up. So in our case, we're looking for the gram stain, or in this case the soy sauce, to show up. And so the bacteria that had only one layer is going to absorb the gram stain, whereas the bacteria with two layers is going to not absorb the gram stain, which means that the one with a single layer, like our paper towel by itself, is going to be called gram-positive. And the other one with the wax paper on it is going to be called gram-negative. And why does that matter? Well, if you have two layers on the outside, you're a lot stronger at defending yourself against antibiotics and other things that would kill bacteria. So we test for gram staining to put our bacteria into one of two categories. So we have antibiotics that work in different ways, and they work on either gram-positive bacteria or gram-negative bacteria, or what's called a broad spectrum will have the ability to work on both kinds of bacteria. So when we test for a bacterial sample out of our patient and we categorize it into these two categories, it's so that we know what kind of antibiotic we need to use. If we look at a close-up of the cell walls of our gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, you'll see that they both have that same basic cell wall on their innermost layer, and they both have a peptidoglycan layer, which is a type of sugar, but you'll notice that the gram-negative has a much smaller peptidoglycan layer than the gram-positive bacteria does. Remember, the gram-positive is the one that's going to take up our stain. And then if we look, we'll see that the gram-negative bacteria has an outer cell wall that our gram-positive bacteria doesn't have. And this outer cell wall is kind of like that wax paper in my demonstration. This is what's going to keep our bacteria from absorbing our gram stain. And that is why the gram-negative bacteria is the one that has an extra outer cell wall, which makes it the tougher bacteria to deal with as far as antibiotics.